This is Lizzie from Let Zoe Spoil You.
And Sagira from Sagira Salutes You. And together, we are Newbie versus Weeaboo. Sagira, Newbie.
Lizzie, Weeaboo.
It's Newbie versus Weeaboo.
This podcast is brought to you by a veteran anime fan, myself, Lizzie, who wanted to share their love with a friend. That would be Sagira, who is our newbie. Each week, I make Newbie watch an anime film, and we discuss it from the points of view of someone who has watched anime for 25 years, did a master's in Japanese culture, and spent time in Japan, versus someone who has watched the Death Note in dub. So, Sagira, what did you think the synopsis for this anime was?
I'm quite proud of this one, to be honest with you. Okay, so, cyborg girl found in Wally-style apocalyptic dump has no memory and must find her untapped Power Ranger potential in self-exploratory adventure. Meanwhile, the bad guy from Breaking Bad is grooming young boys for illegal black market organ delivery and wants to enter the cyborg girl into extreme robot wars.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and that was the plot synopsis for Battle Angel Alita, or as it's known in Japan, Gundam.
But it's known by me, girl with massive eyes.
Yeah, none of them had massive eyes, but it was kind of a trait of the time.
Well, it's clearly a big enough plot point for them to have to do that in the live-action film.
Yeah, we're not going to get me started on that yet, because otherwise you'll just get a rant for 20 minutes about how they're doing it wrong, because I don't like the way they do live-action remakes of anime, because they don't work. I mean, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but for the moment, I'm just like, no. It was just part of the aesthetic that was pretty much 90s anime to have those massive eyes. And she's not the only character in it that has massive eyes. It's just she's meant to be the most kind of innocent, and therefore, and she's also quite young, so she hasn't been completely corrupted by the world and have that cynical eye glare that someone like Shirin has.
She clearly has been corrupted. It's just she doesn't remember.
No, true. She doesn't quite remember where she comes from, but she's such an innocent. In the beginning. But I mean, I happen to adore this particular series, and I also went on to read the manga and the later mangas like Last Order. But I was really upset when I found out this came out in 1993 and it's now 24 years old. And I was like, but I watched it when it came out in 1994. Holy moly, I'm old.
As someone who's getting into anime, it doesn't look like it's that old. Like, it still looks like, because they must keep the same sort of style now, because some of it's a little bit cleaner,
yeah,
but overall it's still got, I wouldn't guess it was that old, basically.
No, it just shows how good animation is and how good and how much they put into anime back in the day compared to a lot of Western cartoons made around about the same time, because it holds up really well. The fluidity of the action scenes and the animation holds up really well. I was like, whoa, this still is as good looking as I remember it to be. Yeah,
it's definitely got a darker colour palette to Ponyo, that's for sure.
Yes.
And everything's a lot sharper. It suits the style of what they're doing.
There's a lot of really expressive line work on the faces and their expressions. And I was just impressed by how good it all looked. And it's something that I think more recent anime doesn't do as much, especially with the new invention of all kind of the CG and the cell painting stuff. It misses all that kind of aggressive line work that really defines the characters' faces. And that might be just something because I'm such an old school anime fan that I really like that style and I miss kind of some of it. But I think it looks great. It looks amazing.
The other thing that I noticed was it is extremely fast moving.
Yeah, they don't waste time.
Then this happened. Then this happened. It was like they had 3 films in one film.
Yeah, I mean, originally it was released as 2 OVAs, so it was there were 2 episodes for this story, and it does cover the early volumes of the manga as a prequel piece of work. But they really wanted to just get the story and get to it, and they don't want a lot of fluff and stuff. They wanted to make sure they got the storyline, and they cut out the bits that they felt they needed to cut out. I mean, it's been so long since I read the manga, I couldn't tell you what got edited for the OVA, but I just remember it just hitting the ground running and keeping me invested for the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I was really into it because, like I say, because it was so fast moving and you did have to try and keep up with it. Well, what happened to that person? Oh, wait, they're there. Wait, did I hear that right? Listening to this one in a sub and having to read it, this is one of those ones that I would have not got and had to watch a couple of times because, it was so fast and the storyline progressed so quickly that I feel like this might be something I do have to watch again to see if I've missed anything, you know?
Yeah. For the podcast, I watched it dubbed, and then I went and rewatched it subbed, and the sub is better. I can't help it. I just like the Japanese voices. I actually thought, because I watched the UK dub being UK, because that's how I originally saw it, as a UK dub, because it was released on VHS here, and there was no such thing as subtitled versions back in 1994. You got your dubbed like VHS. And actually a lot of the adult voices I thought were fine, and it's Gally's voice that I cannot stand. And that's something that's very telling of anime. In Japan, if you've got a young character, they're voiced by a young or child voice actress, but in the UK, in the States, they don't have child voice actresses, so they get a woman and try and make her sound like a child, and it always just ends up sounding like a whiny woman rather than a child with innocence. She sounds so much more whiny in the dub than she does in the sub. And it's like, no, she's not whiny. If you listen to it subbed, she's not whiny. She's just a girl. She's just a little kid. And that was the big difference, was the fact that children aren't voiced by children in dubbed versions.
Yeah, because you also sent me the subversion, the subversion as well. And I did listen to each character. I didn't watch the whole thing again, but I listened to each character. And it is incredibly different. I mean, I don't think the doctor, the main scientist guy...
Edo.
Yeah, in the subversion, I don't feel like his voice suits him because he looks kind of like an Igor from the Ghostbusters.
I remember loving him because I was just like, oh my God, it's like an alternate reality Egon Spengler from the Ghostbusters. Yeah. And his name is also Edo, so it's got the same letter and everything.
But when I listened to the subversion, his voice sounded more like some sort of sensei or something, like it was very...
Yeah, older, mature, wizened.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that voice suited, but most of the other voices did sound better in the sub.
Yeah, it's just it wasn't a bad dub, apart from Galley, and that's just telling of the fact that they don't have child voice actresses. They just have... And also in the 90s, there were so many of those whiny female voice actresses, even for older characters. There was just something they never sounded right. And they would put on and they had the accents, or they would use colloquial terms that you wouldn't find in the Japanese language and stuff. And it was just I'm not down with this. Especially once I got used to subtitled stuff, I just couldn't go back.
One of the times I found subtitles, dub, sorry, it was dub because it's Final Fantasy. What was it? I think it's Final Fantasy 13, and it's the girl with pink hair.
Oh, Lightning.
I don't know which one of them.
Final Fantasy 13 is the one that a lot of us Final Fantasy fans don't talk about. Because it's the one that none of us like.
I don't know if this is the one then, but it's a girl with pink hair, and her voice grated so badly.
It's one of the few I haven't played because I've heard not very good things about it.
Right, well, if it is the one I'm thinking
She's got long pink hair and she's very moody.
Is she moody? I don't know. She doesn't look moody in her pictures, but maybe she is. I can't remember. It's so long ago that I saw it. But I just remember her voice really grating on me, and I was just like, ugh, because it was that kind of, same kind of whiny, high-pitched, I'm such a girl kind of voice.
Yeah.
And I was not digging it. My friend was playing it, and I couldn't watch them play it purely for that character.
Yeah.
I was no, can't continue with this.
No, and I was so used to having all these other strong and interesting characters over years of Final Fantasy. I just took one and I was like, Lightning wasn't for me. I'll still probably play the game, but I don't know, I'm not very good with a lot of these American voices for these Japanese girls that just wouldn't sound or talk like that.
Actually getting into parts of the film, some things came up that I was a bit meh. So, the first note I have that made me go meh was when he's falling through the sea or the roof with Gally, he starts saying to her, "What are you made of?" And he's like, the whole conversation made me feel like he didn't know she was a robot, or he didn't know that there was cyborgs. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's a bit I think he was just trying to he starts forgetting that she's cyborg and starts treating her like a real girl. And it was one of those moments when reality sunk in for him. And also, it's a very common, I don't know if it's how common it is, but in animes and stuff, there's always little running jokes about women's weight, because obviously women are meant to be perfect and light and beautiful and cute in Japan, and therefore if they get heavy, it's a bit of a like, oh, that's not a good thing. So it was a way of him kind of like, you know, putting her down a bit, which is not really his fault. It was part of what happened in anime, and it's part of the time of like the way Japanese treated women. There was always a joke about a woman's weight in a lot of these series. So he's going, oh, what's she made of? As in like, oh, you're a bit heavy, aren't you? And her being like, no, that's not right. I'm a beautiful, attractive Japanese girl. I couldn't possibly be heavy.
That's it, because like I was like, so does he not know there's cyborgs? Because, you know, he works for a guy who works on cyborgs, like doing his roof or whatever he was doing, and then later on he's stealing spines from cyborgs, and it's like, hang on. So,
yeah, no, he definitely knows that she's a cyborg. He's just like literally going like, what are you made of that's this heavy? Because a lot of cyborgs aren't. I suppose he's not really carrying a lot of them around to know how much they weigh, but I think it's more of an implied joke about she's a girl that's heavy. They're not meant to be heavy. Rewatching it now, it was the things that struck me right from the beginning was like, I mean, this is one of those animes that's from what most of us know as the golden age of the cyberpunk genre, from like the Japanese cyberpunk genre. So in the 90s, cyberpunk anime was a big deal, like, and it continued for a fair amount of time. And also there's a smack bang, like just at the start of the Lost Decade in Japan, which was a whole other movement of like socialism and politicalisms and uprising of Japanese youth culture. And this anime, which came out in 1993, was 2 years after Battle Royale, and Battle Royale was made as a statement because 1989 to 1991 was the Japanese economy collapsed. So basically, in the 80s, Japan had this mega economy, and that's when all the robotics, futuristic cities, their technology, their infrastructure all shot up. And America was looking at Japan in the 80s going, oh my goodness, look at this futuristic city, look at all this technology, this is the new wave, and started making like American cyberpunk and used that in influences as films such as Blade Runner. And so, but then the economy collapsed and Japan had a huge crisis, the bubble, and things started going bad and it all changed. And there, you know, and then cyberpunk came out, which was all about futuristic societies where they weren't rich. They were more like they were industrial and the economy had stilted and the divide between rich and poor had got more. So it was kind of one of those things that like they had this. So the film reflects what people were thinking was going to happen with Japan after them having this great technology boom and this great inventives and creating robots. Then, well, the bubble broke and Japan started knowing about things like debt and the divide between working class and like middle class and upper class in Japan started getting really big. And it was all made in that era. This is a bit of background for you. So kind of the setting of cyberpunk and why it's all about the rich up in the big, beautiful city and the people who couldn't like afford to live there kind of in the dirt piles with the leftover technology that the rich didn't want anymore.
The more you know.
Yeah. And it's that thing, like a lot of people and anime fans think like Blade Runner was influenced by the cyberpunk genre, but the cyberpunk genre was actually after Blade Runner because Blade Runner was 82. Blade Runner was influenced by what was happening in Japan, and then Japanese anime was influenced by Blade Runner as a potential like outlook of what was happening in their country. So there was a bit of cross like culture and cross like representation. They homaged each other, and then eventually we got Ghost in the Shell. And then we won't speak of the remake of that.
Scarred you.
Scarred me. Awfully scarred me. But yeah, and also a really interesting telling is when you rewatch it, because if you ever get a chance to see Blade Runner, Battle Angel Alita has so many of the same colour palettes. So a lot of like the browns and the ambers and the oranges. But the other interesting thing is that if you look around in the background, a lot of the shop fronts in Alita have Korean on them. So it was kind of like at the time Japan and Korea still weren't getting on, and Japan didn't really like the Korean migrant population that was living there, and they were kind of seen as the lower and working class. And therefore there's that little kind of bit of social commentary that the people who are living in these cities are all the Korean descendants because all the shop fronts were Korean in them, and the Korean descendants get treated really badly in Japan, especially in this era. They're really treated badly and not given proper Japanese citizenship. So actually, Alita has a whole commentary on like the people living in didn't get citizenship up to Solomon, because obviously the people in Solomon were the pure Japanese, but the people down below may have been offsprings and second generation Japanese and Koreans. And that was fascinating. I didn't notice that at the time.
Well, to come off of what you were saying about the lower class and all that stuff, the bit where Serene, when she's walking through like the marketplace, she's got a cloth over her mouth.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is kind of like a SARS mask type thing, stop the germs, stop the dirt. And then she's smoking a cigarette in the next scene.
Japanese smoke a lot. It's a power play and a richness.
That's fine, but it just kind of voids everything else. Like,
she doesn't want to get infected by the dirty germs.
Cancerous cigarette.
Yeah, well, they're not really worried about that. They're worried about being infected by the diseases of the lower class and the migrants. It's basically racism. It's like, I don't want your less classy and slightly like mixed race DNA germs, but I can have a cigarette.
Oh, this tasty tobacco.
Yeah, it's just as one of those things.
Also, both of them had purple spots on their head. Now, was that to symbolise some sort of connection, like they're siblings or something?
No, they actually say it in the second half. All citizens of Solomon have the spot, and it's proof that they were once a citizen of Solomon. If you live up there, you all get the little, it's a mark of Solomon. That's why you know that they're from up above.
See, so fast moving, I missed that. I didn't get that.
Yeah, it happens in a scene where Yugo is waking up and he overhears Alita and Edo talking in the other room, and that's when he kind of goes, and that's when he overhears the conversation about, like, once you leave Solomon, you can't go back, and the whole going up there is just a lie that sends Yugo into, like, no, I'm going to try and do it. I'm going to try and walk up a pole.
The next bit was when she's in the sewer with the scientist and the two guys who were stealing brains. She comes along and she rips that guy's head off.
Yeah.
And then the scientist guy's like, no, run! He'll kill you. It's like, she just ripped a guy's head off. Are you kidding me? You run.
He's being the protective father type. And also, there's no guarantee that she has the combat knowledge to do it again or the power reserves to continue to do it. It might have been a fluke. We don't know. It might have sent her over the edge doing something like that. He doesn't want her to repeat it because it might taint her innocence. It might turn her into something that he doesn't obviously want to foresee for her. So it's like, yeah, she could be a weapon, or just because she can do something like that, should she do something like that? He's trying to preserve her innocence. He doesn't want her to have the life he has of a bounty hunter. I mean, eventually she chooses it for herself, and I know that she can kick ass, and her movements are beautiful, and her fights are, and it's all on instinct, but just because he can instinctively kill somebody, he wants her to remain less defiled by kind of like the environment they live in.
Hence the line, all you have to do is be beautiful. Yeah, she's going to kick your butt, mate.
Yeah.
Sexist to someone who just rips someone's head off and kicks someone into the abyss.
Yeah, no, probably not the kind of person you want to kind of go, just sit there and be pretty. I'm just like, that's not what Gally's going to do. Gally is way more than that. And she has her own journey of self-discovery. It's just Ada wants to preserve her soul.
Yeah, I understand that, but, she's giving clues to her past and what she could have been.
Yeah.
Surely they should be exploring that just to give her a pass, because she deserves that. She deserves to know where she come from and who she was. And if fighting massive blokes is going to do that, then surely she has that right.
She does have a right, but I always worry there's a line, like in the dub, they say there's like a demon. I can't remember which way around. One of them says there's a demon coiled within her. One of them says there's like a rage coiled within her. I think the dub says she's got rage coiled within her, and the Japanese version they say there's a demon coiled within her. And they both kind of have that moment where they're not entirely sure that they want to release a demon on this world. So there could be something like really dangerous and horrific in her past that turns her into a demon. And she says she's standing on an edge as well. So it's like visually representing this precipice. She's on an edge. If she continues down this, something scary is going to be unleashed, and she's not entirely sure she can control it.
That's how explained.
You kind of get it from the line and from the visuals, like, cues. I got it from the visual cues.
You're anime you do, not even see a second anime that you have to analyse.
And I'm sitting there with a little bit of like throwback cyberpunk, geopolitics, bit about migration and racism, and then the meaning of your soul. It was so much more deeper than I remember. I remember it just being an awesome action piece, but now having read and learnt so much, I can see so much more in it and how even better it is, which is why I'm worried about the remake, because the reason pieces like Alita exist is they reference an actual period of history and tensions between people in Japan and society and ethnic minorities and stuff. If they remake it now, it's got to reflect the era, the politics, the society and the culture it's being made for. It's why a lot of remakes fail, because they don't mention anything about the original stuff that inspired the work to be created in the first place. They just remake it because it looks pretty. And then they fall flat, hence the awful Ghost in the Shell movie and the awful Death Note film that really didn't understand the point of the movies in the first place.
So, speaking of the live action, and this is something that I really don't want them to redo. They probably will, because it's probably some poignant point. As soon as that dog walked up to Gally,
yeah,
I immediately was like, that dog's gonna die. Always, whenever there's an animal in an anime, it's going to die.
They don't do so well.
But it's like, I had no connection with this dog because no one actually acknowledged it.
It was just a random stray going woof woof.
It just appeared and, stayed with them for a bit. And I was like, okay, the fact they haven't acknowledged it and the fact it's there is only for one purpose.
Yeah.
And then he got sliced to bits. And I'm just like, why?
But it's the fact he gets sliced to bits and then all his guts fall out.
But you don't need to kill a dog to prove that someone is evil. We know they're evil. You don't need it. You really don't.
I don't think they would put it in. I don't think they're going to put it in the remakes. A, I think the remake will come out as a 12 rather than a 15. B, people over in the West are a little bit more sensitive to the mindless slaughter of animals. And then B, it's a different era. 90s anime was all about the ultraviolence. There was always heads pulled off and guts spilling everywhere. And if they wanted to show just how horrific this fight was going to be, you kill a random animal off first just to make that sense of oh, this is going to be extra nasty.
But it's not needed.
No.
It's already got grotesque imagery. We don't need a poisonous animal to die.
I wasn't really bothered by it, but then I suppose it's already, I already was aware that, it was going to happen, and...
I was aware it was going to happen. I knew as soon as the dog came on screen, I was like, that dog is a goner. He is the red shirt in Star Trek.
Yeah,
They always are.
Yeah, dogs
I do not agree with it.
Well,
not because of animal cruelty or anything, just because it's so predictable.
Yeah, but it was just something that, old movies and old things just used to do. The mindless killing of animals to make us feel a sense of impending doom or to get us in the feels, or there's cleverer ways to do it now. But back in the day, I suppose, it was just ha, we want to show that guy's evil. Well, here's some dog guts.
And they might well do it in the live action, but they might not show it. They might do it off screen so that something's happened, but you're not quite sure.
With this era of everything being rated 12 or PG-13 in the States, I don't think they're going to show, the stuff. I'm pretty sure they're not going to show any of the, Shurin randomly selling herself so she can get to Edo and just being, standing by windows totally butt naked going, oh my goodness, it's a cyborg and my boob.
No, they just have cyborg and tassel.
Yeah. Yeah. But back in the day, all animes had, and that woman must be naked now.
Exactly.
Well, they're saying that there was a lot of naked men as well. There was a lot of, I don't know how their clothes fell off, but they seemed to lose clothes and be oh no, now I must do this fight scene naked. It was just part of it. But then again, anime wasn't made for kids. It was made for all ages. And a lot of the stuff I was watching was the stuff for adults. So therefore there was lots of naked people and guts and things. Plus the late 80s and early 90s was the era of ultra-violence, which is when some of the most violent anime was ever made. And some of it is glorious. Can't wait to show it to you. Some of my favourite animes. Not that I'm all about the sex and violence, because obviously I love Ponyo as well, but I did like my ultra-violence.
So the next bit was when Hugo went off and Gally went to go find him, and she saw that scar on his wrist, and she was like, how did you get that scar? And he goes into a massive conversation about how his brother did what he did, and etc., etc. I don't actually remember him mentioning how he got the scar.
I don't think he tells you.
No.
It doesn't, no. It's kind of implied that somehow when the brother got killed by the guy, I keep calling you Jimbo because he reminds me of you, Jimbo, from, is it the Tekken games?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah. And
also from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, like, and I was like, somehow he also cut Yugo's wrist somewhere in that fight. So I always go, that's my headcanon for it. And because I remember thinking, kind of going, wait a minute, I'm watching this, and I don't think they actually told me how he got the scar.
No, exactly. It was just kind of like a segue to...
So he can go, this is my tragic backstory. Here's my tragic backstory. My poor brother died. This is why I want to go up to, like, Zolomon. And I'm like, but maybe you could have told us why it looks like you've got slit wrists? No, just Sword Guy has cut you. That's what I think. I think Sword Guy must have cut him somehow.
Also, it just escalates so quickly. It's like, oh yeah, my brother, he built a balloon to go up and his head been cut off. So what the hell?
yeah, it's a harsh world they live in. You build a balloon, you get your head cut off. Like, there's no like, oh dear, you shouldn't be flying balloons. It's just straight to decapitation.
And it's like, yes, my brother got caught and he was killed, so I'm going to steal spines illegally and then go. It's like, why? You know you're going to get killed.
He's all hopeful and starry-eyed, thinking he's going to get a better life. Yeah, well, he's not the most intelligent boy that ever did, like, but he's desperate. And I think it implies that the world is really, really messed up and he just wants a better life for himself. And he's also slightly obsessed to the point of, like, it's verging on madness. Gally has that whole conversation about, like, she can understand why the sister-in-law did that to him, because when someone becomes obsessed with a dream that they're no longer looking at them, they lose touch with reality a little bit. And I think by that point, Yugo was already losing touch because he was so obsessed with his dream that he wasn't thinking logically anymore.
Never was she. I'm never taking my eyes off you. And then he's dead.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't her fault. She went to another room.
She's sitting there playing with her hair in a puddle while he goes outside.
He goes to get...
It's like,
yeah.
That's the first place for him to be.
Yeah. It was just a turnaround as quick. She had that moment of female, like, first love weakness when she was like, oh, our feelings returned. I can be a real girl. I want to look pretty. Oh, dear, I spent too long deciding that I wanted to be a real girl, and now Yugo's head is cut off.
Well, this is it, because I thought that his arm was cut off. Because when you look at it,
yeah.
I mean, maybe I didn't look properly because of everything that was going on, but it looked like his arm had been cut off, and his head was intact, but then she cut his head off to make him into what she is.
Yeah.
Right.
He gets kind of, Yugo gets massacred, and then you find out later that Shuren turned up and goes, this is a way you can rewire stuff to keep him alive, and then, head in the bag.
But they didn't say that in that one. They said, because he said, oh, it's really clever of you, Gally, to think of doing that. They didn't actually say that Shuren was helping. No,
then she replies that, it wasn't me, it was Shuren that taught me to rewire him. But it was just like, a lot of things are kind of like quick sentences that if you miss them, disappear off.
That's what I mean, it was so quick. Everything was so quick, and I had to watch it again because I was like, well, I clearly missed a lot because in the last 5 seconds, they've gone from that to that. Like, what?
That and also, like, reawakening more of, like, her powers and the fact that she can channel the lightning and stuff. It was like she goes from, like, I'm sad to I'm now fully committed to killing you.
I'm now Storm from the X-Men.
But it was so cool. The one bit I always love from it is the bit when she decides to seriously fight and she uses the blood to put the war paint on her cheeks.
No, the dog's blood.
No, it's such an iconic moment. I know it's the dog's blood, but I remember that's like that first, like, I'm serious and I'm going to war paint up because I feel emotionally, like, scarred by this dead dog and therefore I am going to become feral. I do love her fight scenes.
For that bit, just so she could put blood on her face.
Yes. Still iconic, and I still love all her fight scenes because I love the way she moves. No,
it's really well done, and the animation is so good.
Yeah, it is, and you would not think 24 years old, 24 years old.
And then at the end, I had to kind of rewind it a little bit just to make sure I heard right when he said it was Shuren in all those jars.
Yeah.
I was like, huh?
Yeah.
She was alive a second ago. What the hell?
No, she goes there going like, I mean, it is a nice and tragic journey for Shirin, and then it goes really tragic and not very nice. But the fact that she overhears that conversation about love and innocence, and then she remembers that once upon a time she wasn't tainted by the world and greed, and that her and Ado, and she has that change of heart, and then she goes back and she's being all sarcastic to Vector going, oh dear, I don't know where he is, blah, blah, blah. And you just know that he's going to be like, oh, you betrayed me. Oh, you think you can be sarky at me? Well, now your organ's in a jar to be sent up to Zolomon in the sky. And you're just like, no, Shirin, you had a nice journey.
I think I'm going to send you to Zolomon. And it's like,
Yeah, and it's like, now you're in pieces. But it's good because, Ado got his closure as well by being able to, power hammer him through the chest.
It wasn't much of a boss fight. Again, so quick.
Yeah, that was it. That's the thing is, back in the day, these OVAs were made and they were kind of they didn't make big, long ones. You used to get lots of 25-minute things. But you wouldn't get, big, long series like you used to get. You used to get lots of OVAs and they used to run between 25 minutes to 45 minutes. And I think because animation was still quite expensive and they put a lot of effort into it and they weren't producing as much, and also it wasn't as popular. I mean, it still seemed very popular, but it wasn't as hugely commercialized as it is now in Japan. It was still seen as something for otaku, and they aren't that big demographic. So they were shorter, so they were trying to get through the entire storylines a lot quicker to give something that was punchy and good. Now they take a lot more time in developing their stories, and also it's a lot more commercially successful. So back in the day, you'd get a lot shorter things and a lot faster pace, just trying to give you the good stuff.
I think the thing that visually stuck with me in that end bit was when he said, that's Shirin over there, or whatever, and then the eyeballs floating in the jar. It's I don't know why, it's just those eyeballs just made me go, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a cruel twist of fate. But then you get the big old boss battle at the end, and that was a good fight. You see that the tactical thinking, and I will always remember that bit where she uses her fingers to go round, and then you flash back to knowing that she's just put enough pressure on to cut it all beautifully. I like it.
What bit? I missed another bit. What happened?
When she's like, go on, use that. And then he does use it, and he's like, my arm has fallen to pieces.
Right, yeah.
I'm obviously clearly more invested in the fights and the violence. And then I was like, yeah, cool fight. It's good.
It's quite funny because it just seemed like Van Helsing versus the robots with his hand coat.
Yeah.
Vampires are over. It's robots now.
Yeah, wait till you see the things with the robot vampires in it. I mean, and also this is steeped in little things because it starts off as a Jack the Ripper storyline. So there's some storylines just never die. And it's just, some crazy guy running around going, I'm just going to kill the women of the night in this poor place. And then it escalates.
And then at the end, when Yuko's climbing up the thing.
And he's just lost the plot a little bit.
In some ways, I understand why they had to do that bit, just because, the Titanic moment of two of them. But it's just was there any point in bringing Yuko back, really?
Well, she thought of him as her heart. Because she's worried about this kind of if she continues down this path, she'll lose a bit of her soul. But therefore, she's reassured that she won't lose a bit of her soul because she's learned what it is to love somebody. And then but she can't, she's found it too soon. She's not ready to lose it. That's her thing that's kind of keeping her grounded and centered, this love that she feels for Yugo. So she was desperate. And then at the end, obviously, literally her heart got totally chewed out and spat off.
That's what I mean. She got heartbroken twice. The guy died twice.
Yeah.
It's I've lost him. I've got him back. I lost him again, and it's my fault because.
Yeah. Well, it really hardens her up for when the manga continues, because she's less soft and innocent and more, I will just fight and I will never let someone into my heart again, because she swears off ever letting someone into her heart again, and she wants to just because after this is when she goes off into the world to find herself. And there's some really good stuff. This is very much a prequel point for what continues, but it's the moment that hardens her, and it's the moment that turns her into the battle angel rather than Galley.
There you go.
Yeah.
Part 2.
Part 2. Well, yeah, read the manga. Battle Angel Alita, Last Order. Just all of it. It's a very good series. And it's so well drawn. Back in the day when manga had so many more like sketchy lines and stuff, it's all a little bit too clean for my liking now. Every now and again you get a nice like dirty looking one, but they're just too nicely drawn now. I like a little bit more detail, and I love harsh lining and shading and all this background art. There are a couple out recently that have really done it. The Inuyashiki manga is phenomenal. That's just my own like personal taste. I like lots of hard lining.
And I don't read manga either. I'm going to have to do a manga club after this.
Yeah, you'll have to come to my manga club and be like, and this is some really interesting stuff. Read this, you'll like it. I think I'll just stick to showing you some anime films. I think otherwise the world will start, you'll be like, I don't have time for all this. I also need a life. And I'm like, who needs a life when you've got anime and manga? I'm doing fine.
Because it's your major.
Yes, true. It is slightly my obsession. But overall, so what did you think of it?
I liked it. I liked the grittiness. I think it would have been, I don't know, I say it would be better if it was, like, if there was more to each scene to explain it a bit more and stuff, but then you get into the realms of slowing something down, and
yeah,
if it is such a fast-paced anime, you don't want to slow it down, because that's really noticeable.
Yeah, and also a lot of this stuff is made to give you a taste, to make you excited to want to go and buy the manga, so you can find out what's missing and what happens next.
Yeah, exactly. So I can understand that. So saying that it needs to slow down isn't really a critique.
No.
It's more for my brain to catch up and go, wait, what did he say? Wait, what did she do? Everyone's naked. What's going on?
I've got some animes like that to show you.
How exciting. But it's definitely a massive change of pace to Ponyo. So you can't really compare the two.
No, you can't compare them. There's a lot of these things you won't be able to compare, and there'll be some things that you will be able to compare.
I think for this one, I'm going to go with eyeballs.
Okay.
In reading, and I'm going to give it 4 eyeballs.
There we go. So you got 4. This is definitely a 5 eyeballs in a jar for me, because I love the animation, I love the action, I do like the violence, and also it makes me think and brings back all that research I did on like Japanese culture and like all those things. And also I love the world of like Blade Runner and the influences between the two, and I love the cyberpunk genre. This is just like, I just loved it. I loved it.
I'm going with the 4 because of the dog. The dog took away an eyeball.
That's okay. That's all right. I'm not really into dogs, so I didn't mind. If it was like, oh no, they've killed the jellyfish, then I would have been like, oh goodness, no, not the jellyfish. No one hurts cephalopods.
Hold on, in Ponyo, when she's on the jellyfish, riding it to land,
yeah,
and then the boat comes and hits the jellyfish.
They all survived. It's fine. The magic of the ocean.
Did it not have brain damage?
It's a jellyfish. Jellyfish and most cephalopods have an all-encompassing neural net that if a part of them gets damaged or cut off, the entire thing still remains intact because they don't have a focal brain. And they have a neural system that means that they don't that it can still, synapses still work and function.
Still.
A bit of random cephalopod knowledge there. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I can see why you'd give it a 4 compared to my 5, because I've still got obviously my nostalgia goggles, and also it made me think, it made me remember about things like the issues between Japan and Korea and the migrant populations in Japan at that time.
And we've all
yay!
had an education today.
There we go. I think on that note, we can sign off. Hope you enjoyed the episode. This is Lizzie from Let Zoe Spoil You signing off. And if you did like what you heard and want to hear more from me, you can find me as Let Zoe Spoil You on YouTube, Instagram, Tumblr and Twitter.
And if you'd like to know more from Sagira, you can find me on YouTube, Tumblr and Twitter.
But for now, this is a weeaboo saying Janne
and Newbie saying see ya!